Hey, Coach, this is Will Guillory from the Athletic. Let me get my stuff going here. So one of the words I think Griff mentioned a while ago was that he wanted the transition attack to be lethal this year. And if you look back at most of your track record, a bunch of your teams have been bottom 10 or bottom half of the league in pace. So how much of an adjustment is that going to be for you coaching a team that wants to lean on playing fast more often?
A little bit of an adjustment, Will, but I listen. I have said this um, when I've been broadcasting. I think the pace stats are a little bit deceptive to begin with because not in all cases, because certainly you had Milwaukee leading the league in defense and running off of it, but a lot of times if you're hard to score against and you're making the other team's offense take more time because you do a good job defensively, the pace of the game slows down, particularly if you're a defense that's good, but not based on creating turnovers, the pace will slow down. And so sometimes I know even preparing for teams, you'll look at teams as what I think is a good running team. And then you look at the pace and fast break points, which are really pretty, I think, poorly defined anyway. And the numbers will be low. So I do think my teams have run better than the numbers will show, but it is different. I haven't had, I really haven't had guys that could attack in transition the way that say Eric Bledsoe can. I haven't had guys. I don't think anybody has guys who throw the ball ahead as well and as willingly as Lonzo does. And so we've got some advantages in transition and certainly want to play to that. And that will require some adjustment for me in the way that we play offensively. But I think the biggest thing is to make our transition game as good as it can be. And I just mentioned Milwaukee. We got a guard. I mean, I don't know if you can be 20th defensively and be a lethal transition team. You just don't get enough opportunities to get out and run. And you can push the ball when the other team scores. And we will try to play faster off of those situations than I am used to. But I don't think you're going to, light the world on fire in transition if you're taking the ball out of the net all the time.
Coach, this is Fletcher Mackel from WDSU NBC New Orleans. I have, I guess, kind of two questions here. You said that you were happy to stay away from the managerial side because you believed in Griff, but as somebody who covered games, I guess maybe your level of excitement when Adams and Bledsoe became official, and then more importantly, as far as Zion in his health, are there any limitations going into training camp that you've been told of, or will he be full go to the best of your knowledge, in shape and, I guess, 100%?
Yeah, thanks, Fletcher. To your first question, I've always been a big fan of Eric Bledsoe's. I think first and foremost, he has the kind of disposition and mentality that I really like. I mean, he's a tough, hard playing guy who will really compete on the defensive end and on the offensive end. He's a relentless attacker. I mean, he's somebody who can attack off the dribble. He's a great finisher. Somebody who can really, really get to the paint. And obviously, he's now spent the last couple of years playing on the team, that's had the best record in the NBA. And so he understands what it is to play at that level. So I thought he was a great addition. And to be able to go in the same trade and get Steven Adams, I mean, that to me is an amazing job that Griff pulled off to be able to do that. And then add a couple of first round picks and some swaps. I mean, you couldn't do a much better job than that. But those two new guys will really help. As far as Zion, no one, not Zion, not our medical staff, has mentioned any limitations going into camp. As far as the conditioning and where it is, it's not just Zion, it's everybody on the team. I won't have any idea on that really until Sunday. when we get into the first day of team practice and start going up and down the floor a little bit, we'll start to get an idea of where we are. I will just say this. I don't think it's going to be the level of conditioning I'm used to seeing on the first day of training camp. And I don't think that's of any fault of the players. I think this virus and what the players have been allowed to do and not allowed to do is going to have major impact. Normally, as you guys know, you go to that first day of training camp, they've usually been around for 3 or 4 weeks and playing pickup games and getting up and down the week. We couldn't do any of that. And so you just have to know as a coach that you're going to go into it on Sunday and it's not going to be the level of conditioning that you're used to dealing with. And one of our big jobs in training camp over the course of a little over 2 weeks is to bring them as far as we possibly can in that amount of time. And I think for us, that means a real orientation in camp to a lot of 5-on-5 play, a lot less breakdown drilling, working on the parts of things, and a lot more of whole method of getting everybody out there and going at it and playing basketball. I don't think there's a better way to condition than to play. And so we have to play as much as we possibly can and add things as we go.
Hey, Stan, Christian Clark with NOLA.com here. The Steven Adams extension, I mean, he'll be here for the next few years with that thing done. I mean, your power forward and center for years to come are Zion and Steven Adams. What are just your thoughts on, that pairing and how those guys can kind of mesh together, how you envision them playing together?
Well, look, I think, first of all, find me a 4 and 5 together anywhere in the league that's as physical as those two guys. I was, when we made that trade, I said, look, the one thing I know for sure, you may come in here and shoot the ball great. You might find a way to beat us. You're not punking the New Orleans Pelicans ever with those two guys next to each other. So we got 2 really physical guys, 2 really strong guys, 2 elite offensive rebounders. We got guys that are capable of being great screeners. They are both high-level finishers around the basket in a different way. Zion obviously finishes at the rim and over the top of people, top 3 in the league in finishing at the rim. Steven, is a really interesting guy, as you guys know, because you've seen him so much. He's this big, strong guy, and he's got that really soft touch in the lane. He gets the ball in a pocket pass and puts up that little floater. It's pretty interesting to watch. So, on the interior at both ends of the floor and on both boards, we should be very, very good. And then I think they're both very capable passers, and they're going to have to be as interior passers because, we're going to be a little bit different than almost everybody else in the league in that we'll spend a good part of the game playing with 2 guys who are not stretch. Neither one of them are stretch shooters. I like it in this sense, Christian. The thing I like is I like being different than other teams. Okay. I think it takes maybe a little bit longer to develop. It'll take them some time because everybody's sort of used to playing in a different alignment. But I think it's good that when you come play the New Orleans Pelicans, the game's going to be different than the game you play every other night of the week. I think it makes it more of a challenge for people to play us. I think that can turn into an advantage for us.
Stan, Scott Kushner from the Times-Picayune. You mentioned not getting punked there. Griff mentioned the words ferocious competitor a couple times with guys that you've added. How much of the philosophy of this team and what you're building right now is really based on toughness and competitiveness and all this kind of stuff that in a league that's so based on 3-point shooting, it feels like most of the time that you are kind of zigging where others zag. Is that a fair way to put it?
Well, listen, I think that every coach will tell you that they value competitiveness, but it's all a matter of how you prioritize things, right? And I think that what Griff's done in building this roster is he's prioritized that toughness and competitiveness above other things. I mean, we all, what you want is toughness, competitiveness, a very high skill level, a lot of shooting, quickness, speed, guys that can guard multiple positions, handlers, passers. They don't come all rolled up in one guy, and your team will take on an identity of its own. And I think all of us here want our identity to be largely about toughness and competitiveness. And I think that certainly the additions of Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams, add to that. And that's what we hope to be. And with those two guys up front, like I said, I mean, physicality is not going to be the problem up front with those two in the game.
Hello, Coach. Chris Osales from SDNA.gr, Chris. I would like to ask you, you have a player that you collaborate with him on 10 years before, JJ Redick. How important for your plan on the New Orleans Pelicans is his presence in the roster? And how excited you are with these young guys like Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Kara Lewis on your roster? How excited you are to evaluate and to make a step up about their performances?
Well, I think the first part of your question, obviously the only player I come in really knowing and having a great familiarity with is JJ, and certainly his game has changed over the last 8 years that I haven't been coaching him. But I know what his work ethic is. I know what his level of focus is. I know what his competitiveness is. I know who I'm coaching, even as he's gotten older. And certainly, I think, if you look at how the New Orleans Pelicans in this upcoming season are going to build an offense, certainly Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson are your two foundational building blocks. But I think the other two guys offensively who you're really building around, and everybody has a role, but the other two guys you're really building around and running plays for, let's put it this way, is you're building your offense around Eric Bledsoe and JJ Redick and his catch and shoot ability. Now, we're also largely building an offense around Lonzo Ball and his ability in transition to get people the ball and give us a chance to attack, and his ability to shoot the ball on the perimeter. But in the half court, in terms of who you're going to run plays for, it's going to be Brandon, Zion, Eric, and JJ. So I don't think that's going to surprise anybody, in the league, our fan base, our players, or anybody else. So JJ is a huge part of it. He's a guy who draws, besides his ability to make shots, because of that, his being able to draw attention and everything else opens up other people, creates great space on the floor. And he's a guy who's always going to be tuned into what's going on. He's a low mistake guy at both ends of the floor, but particularly defensively. I've always had great appreciation for what JJ brings to the game at the defensive end of the floor. As far as the young guys, I mean, I don't know how you could be any more excited than I am. I mean, Brandon and Zion, you've got two guys who are, foundational building blocks of a franchise that are really young and have the potential at least to be together and do great things for a long time. And I'm really excited about, going into camp and really learning more about them. I mean, because you start with an outsider's knowledge, even when you get into the film. I mean, you're starting with an outsider's knowledge of what you think these guys can do and what you can build for them and everything else. But it's my experience, you don't really know until you get in there and start coaching them. And there's some things that I know they can do based on what I've seen on film, and we want to keep those things, obviously. And then there's some things that you think you can build in for them that might be a little bit different. But you're not going to know that until you get out there and do it. And we're going to have to figure that out as we go. I'd be lying to all of you and to my team if I told you that sitting here right now, or even 5 days into training camp, that I know exactly where we're going to go and what's going to go on. I mean, I'm coaching these guys for the first time, and they're young guys. It's you have to understand it's different if you take over a team and everybody's like JJ Redick. I know exactly the kind of stuff I want to run for JJ Redick, and so would any other coach coming in here, because you've seen the guy do it over 14 years in the league. With these younger guys, it's a little bit of a process, but it's also one of the things that really excites me is, trying to find new things, trying to build things into your offense that allows guys to show maybe skills that we haven't seen to this point.
Hey, Coach, it's Andrew from ESPN. You mentioned it a little bit right there, but just what kind of player do you see Lonzo Ball as, especially after his growth last year as a shooter? You guys obviously bringing Bledsoe in to kind of help in the half court with the offense. Where do you kind of see Lonzo being able to grow?
Well, I think Lonzo's got some things that he does at an extremely high level. There's no one in the league that throws the ball ahead to people in transition the way Lonzo does. No one who sees it any better, nobody who's as willing to deliver the ball up the floor as quickly as he does. And so if you're willing to run, if you're willing to be a guy who gets down the floor, you're going to get a lot of chances to attack because of that ability that Lonzo has. Then in the half court, what he did last year, shooting the ball, both the percentage he shot from three at just under 38% and on a high volume gives us great spacing on the floor for our other guys. So he helps in that regard. He's a guy that I want to try to put into some different situations. But I think the thing that we really want to, focus on improvement with him in terms of playing the game is, being a little bit more aggressive on pick and rolls in particular, to turn the corner and go to the basket to score. I think he can be a better finisher, turning the corner on his drives. And I think it's a mindset. He's so such a great passer that I think there's times he's coming off looking to pass, and then what opens up is the basket. And my experience is that it's hard to adjust from the pass to the shot. Whereas if you're thinking score and the help comes, a guy with Lonzo's instincts will see the play. So we just sort of need to turn that around with him. But his passing ability, his ability in transition, and his three-point shooting alone make him a very, very good player. And I think, we've got a lot of guys who are playmakers now. And I think playing multiple playmakers together is a good thing in today's game, particularly the amount of switching you see and everything else. Your ability to break people down off the dribble and make plays is absolutely essential. And I think having more of those guys gives you an advantage.
Hey, Coach, Shamit Dua from Bourbon Street Shots. Zion Williamson and Steven Adams are two of the best offensive rebounders in the league. Obviously, you want to play to your strengths. How do you balance that with getting back in transition for transition defense?
That's a great question, and it's been one of the things that we've talked about as a staff, because I have always highly valued transition defense. I just think it's something that if you're willing to focus and make the effort, that it's not really personnel based, that you can be a good defensive transition team. I've never had two guys playing next to each other who were both that good of offensive rebounders. And then we've got guys like Josh Hart, and even Lonzo as a point guard, who are pretty capable offensive rebounders. And I think one of the things that we have to monitor as the year goes on is, as we give guys a little bit more freedom to attack the glass, are we getting more than we're giving up? I mean, it's a pretty easy, thing to track. And, we have to see how that goes. I do think it's essential that the guys who are not offensive rebounders are back quickly right on the release of the shot. I think our effort in transition is going to be huge no matter what we do on the offensive glass. And then I think understanding what we're trying to accomplish in transition is a big one. And it is something that we will spend a lot of time on daily, is our transition defense. So while our offensive rebounding rules may be in flux a little bit, as we go into the season, our philosophy in transition and our, the time we put into it will not be in flux. It's something we will emphasize starting on Sunday. Honestly, that it'll be the very first thing we go on the court and talk about is transition defense. Right from our offensive rebounding rules to getting back will be the very first thing we address basketball wise when we start practice on Sunday.
Yeah, hey Stan, Doug Mouton at WWL TV here in the beautiful French Quarter of New Orleans. When talking about Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams, Griff used highly competitive often. You did too. Is part of what you hope to get from them is to maybe teach the young core how to play in the fourth quarter and how to finish? Is that a part of bringing in two guys like them?
Well, I think it certainly helps. But, let's be clear. And I think the number one way that veteran players teach other players is by what they do on the court. Our players will see those two guys practice every day, prepare every day, play in games, play in the fourth quarter. There's no better lesson than that. I'm sure those guys will, talk to our other guys, talk to our young guys and help them in that way. I certainly hope they do, but nothing will be as powerful as how they play in those situations. That's how players will really learn. They'll see it and see, Eric Bledsoe pressuring the ball and getting over screens and things like that, and Steven Adams protecting the rim and rebounding the ball. And they'll know that those are the things that lead to winning basketball. Look, those two guys and JJ are the only three guys on our team who, or at least of our core guys in the rotation, who've been in the playoffs. So they have to lead the way. There's no question on that.
What's up, Stan? This is Will Guillory from The Athletic again. Just about every time we've talked to you, you've stressed the importance of defense and making a commitment on that end. And I know you've probably watched a ton of film on last year's team. So what specific areas do you feel like you want to see some improvement for that jump to happen this year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would identify three right off the bat, Will. Number one, we just talked about, we got to get back. We can't be giving up easy buckets in transition. Number two is I'm going to give you four, actually. Number two is we've got to keep the ball out of the paint. I think we've really got to commit ourselves to keeping the ball out of the paint. We gave up 52 points a game in the paint last year. I don't think that you can build a sustainable defense around that. So, we have to be able to take care of that. What sort of goes along with that and helps is we've got to cut our fouls. We gave up almost 25 free throw attempts a game last year too. So if you're giving up 52 in the paint and you're giving up 25 free throw attempts, it gets really, really difficult no matter what else you do and no matter how hard you can. And then the fourth one is we got to be a better defensive rebounding team. So we were a really good offensive rebounding team that got a lot of second chance points, and a really poor defensive rebounding team that gave up a lot of second chance points. So if we could do those four things, get back, really commit to keeping the ball out of the paint, cut down on our fouls, and block out and rebound a lot better as a team, I'd be pretty happy.
All right, great. That's going to be it. Thanks a lot, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Coach. Thanks,